Hello everyone, my name is Tax and welcome back to the Lovecraftian Video Game Retrospective and welcome to Shrouded Insanity. Shrouded Insanity is a 2D action game and has been described as a 2D Bloodborne. There's probably some truth in that. The game depicts you as a more or less unknown protagonist in apparently an alternative 19th century Britain. You just got resurrected and your job is to enter a mansion, which is overrun by its inhabitants that have been driven insane by a mysterious fog. Your job is to clear out the mansion, defeat 4 knights as well as the knight's boss, and afterwards, according to your contract, you will be set free and can roam the world again as a living being. And the game does have a pretty verbose plot and lore, but to be honest, there isn't all that much to it. There's a lot of text to read, but for the most part it boils down to there's a mysterious fog, everybody went insane, stab everybody and solves the problem. Which can be both good and bad. On the one hand, it's kind of nice to have the lore there at all. On the other hand, I think the game would have profited from simplifying things a little bit and maybe just giving you a couple of cutscenes. But the plot isn't really the game's main selling point anyway, it's probably the gameplay. The game looks very much like a brawler graphics-wise. It does have this modern pixel art style. It doesn't quite look like a game from 16 or 32-bit era, but it does have this recognizable modern art style. And for the most part it looks good. It gives you some more variety with regard to assets. A lot of rooms in the mansion look more or less the same, but for the most part it does look fine and the art style is pretty cohesive, which I do appreciate. The sound design isn't too great. The sound effects are for the most part fine, but there's really only one main tune for the boss, and apart from that there's not much in the music department. Again, it's not bad, it's just a little bit underwhelming. With regard to gameplay, you have what you would expect from a game like this. You've got a single character, your character is pretty fragile, you have to manage your health and your healing items well. You do have a couple of attacks. Your main focus are your melee attacks. You've got a quick and a slow attack, or a light and a heavy attack. You have to manage your stamina meter. Well, it drains quite quickly, it does recharge, so you have to decide which enemies to approach, when to attack them, which attack to use. You also have a ranged attack with a pistol, which isn't terribly effective, but obviously gives you the advantage of attacking from a distance. And while it's all fine and good, I think the game does have a couple of weaknesses. It is pretty difficult, which is not necessarily a bad thing and might be partially due to me not being all that great at these games. But I had the feeling that the stamina meter is a little bit punishing. It seems to run out quite quickly and I found myself running around a lot while waiting for it to recharge, which isn't great, but I can understand that the stamina mechanic is pretty central to the gameplay, because otherwise you'd probably just hack and slash your way through all the enemies. You also have a dodge roll. The dodge roll is something I found very useful, way more useful than the blocking move. And the reason for that is that there isn't really much incentive to actually fighting the enemies. In fact, you can go through the entire game without fighting any enemies apart from the bosses whom you have to fight. You do get some items from the enemies, but they aren't all that useful and there isn't really any grinding, so there's little incentive to fight all those enemies. Occasionally you do have to fight them because you can't leave a room when there's enemies too close to you, but for the most part you can just dodge roll through the entire room, walk to the next one until you find the boss. This allows you to speed on the game actually very quickly, but it also means that the fights are not only difficult, but I found myself finding them not very rewarding because I barely get anything out of it. Occasionally you do get resources, but you also have to invest resources in fighting the enemies in the first place. And I found that's probably the game's main weak spot. Another weak spot is the fact that I found the heavy attack not very useful. Same goes for the ranged attack. And that leaves me with mainly the regular attack and the dodge roll, which makes the gameplay rather simple, which can be a good thing, but isn't necessarily the case. So the game it does have some merits, and it's laudable that it turned out actually quite well, considering it's just made by a single developer, but I wouldn't expect too much. If you're expecting a full Bloodborne style game here just in the second dimension, then you might get disappointed. But if you like games like this, the game is cheap enough that I do recommend to check it out nevertheless. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time. Take care and goodbye.